India is also many Indias. We gave you a musical welcome in the beginning where the music represented different regional genres of music within India. We expected you to be healed and to get over your jet lag after the long travel through the healing power of music. But I must tell you that still every part of India, every version of India is very unique and distinct. It is said that culture follows empire by none other than the great thinker who expounded the theory of imperialism. Culture and imperialism was his significant work, Edward Said, who also spoke about how only 35,000 soldiers could rule a big nation like India. He says that empire follows culture or culture follows empire in the long run. Now for law to make its impact, we have what we call as the logic of law. The logic of law has to be connecting to the experience of those who are supposed to be following the law, those who are supposed to be evolving the law and evolving themselves along with the law. As I welcome you, today India is at the threshold of a big controversy which has been revealed just 2 days ago, the Paradise Papers controversy. I think rule of law could not be emphasized at a time better than this, because virtually all nations are reeling under two big curses. One is the huge income gaps between people. Second is the trap of bad governance. I think for both of these, there could be a kind of cure in rule of law, in center staging the rule of law. I think we have assembled here as the conscience of great nations to center stage rule of law in this diasporic family. Welcome, each and every one of you. There's a very interesting synergy between Symbiosis and IALS, as you would have seen already from the film. The film shows how Symbiosis emphasizes the idea of coexistence and synthesis of diversity and ideas. Similarly, IALS is also founded on this basis of synthesis of ideas drawn from a huge diaspora across the world, the dispersing human consciousness. The choice of Pune as a venue is also quite interesting because Pune has been the platform for many path-breaking steps in the India's struggle for freedom. The famous Pune Pact, which was the Pune Pact as is then was called, was signed here, which was the expression of representation for the backward communities of India within the electorate of India. Gandhi saw his wife departing him in body in this city. So you would be visiting that, the Aga Khan Palace. Pune was also considered as a place where it thinks what India thinks tomorrow. Probably by some kind of pleasant coincidence, Pune became the venue of IALS because in India, through the leadership of great stalwarts like Dr. Madhav Menon, a number of discussions are going on. This year I have seen at least 5 conferences on reforms in legal education. So Pune being chosen as the venue for discussing it as a global level and within India at this opportune moment could nothing but be a pleasant coincidence. Could there be a better historical incident for legal education? I would also tell you that this is a moment for the faculty of Symbiosis International University in the Faculty of Law, as well as the lead law schools of the country, providing this unified platform in the diversity of legal education evolution within this country. Now the faculty will lead some of the small group discussions, they would participate, they would facilitate this whole event. This couldn't be possible, the 5 days event being planned for the last 7 months, but for a huge team working behind the curtains. The epic and the legendary Carnegie Report researchers and experts coming here and debating here is another facet of this great program. All of us have cited Carnegie Report, but we haven't had the first-hand experience of how it was brought out and what kind of road ahead could be there based on Carnegie Report. So this is a possibility. So IALS has made it possible and we are very happy to welcome you to this joint venture. They say that there are many ways and there are many lives. India believes, core of India believes that there is something called reincarnation or rebirthing. I would say that there is a need to tone down the rhetoric with reality. the logic of law needs to be mixed with the beauty of life. This is what we have attempted as Symbiosis team, sitting in the city of Pune. I must tell you that the origin of the word Pune is from the origin of, has a Sanskrit origin, which means punya. Punya is nothing but the result of noble deeds, you know. So Pune was named as Punyanagari, or the city which is the city of nobility, or outcome of noble deeds. They say that you will have to conduct penance or follow penance for many lives to reach to this punya. So Pune as a city has been the first city to popularize women's education. Pune is the city which has minimum rate of crime. Pune is the city where women walk free even at 1 o'clock in the early morning, in the wee hours. So that will tell you enough about how, by historical coincidence, Pune was chosen as the venue, and it's very meaningful because it is going to rewrite the history in the landscape of legal education. I would say that International Association of Law Schools, for the benefit of many of our Indian friends here, is a very good forum to become members. I'm not here to advertise, but I'm here to share experience and the gains that Symbiosis has had through IALS. In the last 10 years of association, we have had at least 14 collaborations which we have signed because of this association. We have had 3 big delegations coming as Study India delegations from Australia because of the relationship which was facilitated through IALS. We have had 15 different legal research scholars from New Zealand, from Ireland and other places who have come here and enriched our students and faculty, sharing their experience and studies and research. We have had journal editorials coming from the friends we gathered through IALS. We have had references, we have had PhD referees, we have had curriculum reviews being done informally by these friends. So if you become, or if you associate with IALS, you don't lose anything. You may lose some dollars, but those dollars are going to come back to you in the form of rich gains in your curricula, in best practices. One of the best things that is happening in IALS in the last 4 years is the judicial standards which are coming in through the Council of Judges. I'm very happy to tell you that this evening at the function, Chief Justice of India, the highest judicial officer of the country, is going to connect to you through the video conferencing. But there are also judges retired and judges who are at the junior level who are going to connect to this forum. So involving important stakeholders of legal education, involving the international legal education community through the forum of IALS has been a very, very pleasant and gainful experience, and it is going to last, and it is going to only grow from strength to strength in years to come. As you are parting with us in a couple of days, or some of you after 4 or 5 days, you will get a tiny, tiny little memento from us, which is a utility item, but it has got a big chakra, the wheel in it. For India, chakra is the Dharma chakra. Even in the Supreme Court, we have the Dharma chakra, the wheel of Dharma, as one of the important parts of the logo of Supreme Court. Now, wheel for us indicates the eternal cycle of repetition. We say that human conduct, in order to gain order, has also to compromise with or put up with this eternal cycle of repetition. But Dharma is also a wheel which steers. So it is justice which steers destiny. It is rule of law which steers justice. It is legal education which steers rule of law. So steering the wheel is not just about the process of steering. It is about steering the destinies of humanity, the destinies of nations. So we believe in India that Chakravarti, or the highest king, the highest authority, sovereign authority, is the one who steers the destiny. So rule of law is that highest sovereign who should be steering the destinies. It will not be possible, as I told you in the beginning, if human frailties like corruption and bad governance were to steer our destinies. So law gurus, all of you who have assembled here, and a few law gurus from India who have steered the destiny of legal education, will be in the evening honored by our forum. In a nation which has brought zero to the world, which has gifted yoga to the world, which taught simplicity to the world, which taught non-violence through Gandhi to the world, also stands as a living experiment of coexistence of differences in a unique secular experiment in democracy through the Constitution. And today, the IALS collaborators in India also represent this diversity. They also represent the living experiment of coexistence, the symbiosis of the private and the public schools, symbiosis of many law schools who are on different stages of evolution to the ideal state of legal education. I welcome each and every one of you to the deliberations of next 2 days. First 2 days in the form of Global Audience Forum, and next 2 days in the form of annual meeting. And each of these plenary sessions, the group activities have been very meticulously planned by IALS in terms of time as the past, time as the present, time as the future, in a continuum, and also in the continuum of evolution of the idea of rule of law and legal education as the loyal servant to the idea of rule of law. It is also said by President Frank in one of our conversations that this is a large global conversation, it's a large global dialogue. But a dialogue cannot be monotonous. So to break the monotony, we have put together some ensemble of culture. So don't forget to spend little time, whatever little time we allow you to be left with, in our Law Carnival corner, which you will be familiarized during the tea break. Welcome one and all.
Thank you, ma'am, for the welcome address. And with that, we come to the end of our first segment, and we will now commence the first plenary session. Our first plenary session is on the topic, Strategizing Towards the 21st Century Globalized Legal Education. I now request the chair, the co-chair, and the panelists for the first plenary session to kindly come up on stage. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that this session will be chaired by Professor Barbara Holden-Smith, Vice Dean, Cornell Law School, the United States of America, and IALS General Secretary Treasurer, and co-chaired by Professor Dr. N.R. Madhava Menon, Chairman, Menon Institute of Legal Advocacy and Training. We request the dignitaries to kindly remain seated as we provide brief introductions of the chair and the co-chair before commencing our session.
Professor Barbara Holden-Smith is the Vice Dean, Cornell Law School, United States, and the IALS General Secretary and Treasurer. She has been recognized for her groundbreaking work in Supreme Court, history and practice. Ma'am currently teaches conflict, federal court, civil procedure, and advanced civil procedure. Ma'am will be the chair for the first plenary session.
Ma'am, before you proceed with your address, I would like to introduce the co-chair for this session, who is Professor Dr. N.R. Madhava Menon, who is the chairman of Menon Institute of Legal Advocacy and Training. Sir is the founder and director of the National Law School of India University, Bangalore, and the founder and vice chancellor of the West Bengal National University of Judicial Sciences. Sir is also the founder of the National Judicial Academy, Bhopal, and the chancellor of Guru Ghasya Das Central University, Chhattisgarh. Sir was awarded the Padma Shri for Outstanding Public Service by the Government of India in 2003. And Sir was also the former chairman of the Government of India's Committee to Draft National Policy on Criminal Justice and Committee on Equal Opportunity, and a former member of the Committee on Restructuring of Higher Education in India. With this, we formally commence the first plenary session, and I would now request Professor Barbara Holden-Smith to kindly take the stage.
Good morning. I just want to say a few words of welcome, since many of you couldn't join us last night for dinner. Okay. So I'm not Frank Wong, as you can see. He's been detained, but I've heard rumors that he was cited in the airport in Delhi. So he should be here this afternoon and will be joining us then. But as I said last night, on behalf of both Frank Wong and all of the members of the Board of Governors of the International Association of Law Schools, I want to welcome you to this 2017 Global Law Deans Forum. As those of you who have been with us since last evening and continuing on until this morning, no doubt know, this conference, this forum is going to be memorable. All of us will go home, I think, with very fond and warm memories of our time in India in general and in Pune in particular. And part of that, part of the reason for that, I think, is the graciousness and the warmth and the hospitality of the Indian people, at least that I've encountered since coming here, as well as the just the wonderful organization, the clock-like workmanship of putting this conference together and pulling it off. That's the result of the leadership of Dr. Kapoor. So I really want to thank her, as well as the leadership of Symbiosis International University and Symbiosis Law School for hosting us here today. And I really look forward to the robust conversations that I think will occur during our 2 days here at the Global Audience Forum, and then for those of you who are continuing on to the annual meeting. Before I begin with the first panel, I just want to give you a brief overview of what we'll be doing in the next day and a half. So since 2014, the International Association of Law Schools has held over 25 meetings, forums, workshops, and conferences in over 20 different countries. The purpose of these gatherings was with the goal of developing a consensus on the fundamental principles, guidelines, and outcomes of a legal education. Our discussions were informed by the experiences of our members. These efforts have resulted in the promulgation of 3 foundational documents: the Singapore Declaration on the Standards and Outcomes of a Legal Education, the Madrid Protocol on the Principles of a Legal Education, and the draft Judicial Standards of a Legal Education. Prior to 2014, at IALS Law Deans Regional Forums, at places as different from each other as Nugu, Nigeria, Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, Santiago, Chile, to name a few, many law school deans had called upon the IALS to take up, as part of its mission, the task of adopting a program of evaluation and certification of law schools and university law programs, as a means to help our member schools to improve the quality of the educational experience of their students. In the early years, we among the IALS leadership resisted these calls, thinking that such a goal was impractical given the vast variety of law schools and law programs among our members. However, over time, as our membership worked toward a consensus on our common aspirational standards, which culminated in the 3 foundational documents, we came to see that despite the important differences among us, we shared certain common problems, concerns, and challenges, which could be met by sharing approaches to legal education based on the rich experiences of our diverse membership. Indeed, given this diversity, when coupled with the mission of the IALS, IALS is uniquely positioned to develop and implement a program of evaluation, assessment, and certification of legal education globally. Thus, for the past 3 years, we have been devoting our efforts towards construction of such a program of assessment. This year at the Global Law Deans Forum, we've convened to share ideas among the global leaders in legal education as to what should be the framework of an assessment program. To that end, our forum consists of 3 plenary sessions, each of which will be followed by a small group discussion. The first plenary session for today is strategizing towards a 21st century globalized legal education. As you've been told, I'm joined as co-chair in this by Professor Menon, who will say a few words in a moment. But first I want to introduce our panelists for this session. I won't go into their backgrounds. Those backgrounds you can find in your program. So I'll just briefly give you an introduction to who they are. is George Madidi, Executive Dean, University of Johannesburg, Faculty of Law, South Africa. Sitting next to him is George Williams, Dean of the University of New South Wales, Australia. And then on this side, there's Dean Giuseppe Nessi, who's Dean of the University of Trento, Faculty of Law. And sitting next to him is Dean Luis Franceschi, who's the Dean of Strathmore University in Kenya. And lastly, we have Michael Peel, who's the Vice Dean at the School of Law in Bhutan. Each of them will present, each of them will give a shorter presentation, I hope. We have a particular challenge. Speaking of challenges, we have a particular challenge this morning. We have 75 minutes to hear from this distinguished group of legal educators, and we want to hear them discuss challenges that, at least one challenge that they have faced as deans in trying to globalize legal education, improve legal education at their law schools, and what strategies they have used to meet the particular challenge, and what lessons they have learned from the approaches they have taken to trying to resolve those challenges. So we want to hear from each of them, but we also would like to have some time for discussion. And then we also need to leave time at the end for a very important presentation by Dr. Patricia O'Sullivan, who's going to help guide us with respect to the exercise we're going to be involved in our small group discussion after this plenary session. So that's very important to leave time for that. So with that challenge in mind, I will turn it over to Dr. Menon for in case he has a few words he'd like to share with you, and then we can proceed, I guess in this order, in the order which I introduced you, or however you wish to do it. Is fine with me. So,
Well, Dean Smith, fellow panelists, distinguished deans present here, brothers and sisters. I am a 20th century law teacher, having left active teaching about 30 years ago. I am conscious of the fact that I am addressing a group who are 21st century law teachers looking at how to organize legal education in a globalized society with all the challenges that we are faced today. Dean Smith referred to the lessons learned will be shared by the fellow panelists. I have a couple of lessons learned during my career as a law teacher, which might help those of you who are planning the strategies for 21st century legal education. It was almost midway through my career as a law teacher that I asked myself the question as to what is my role as a law teacher, what I am teaching, how I am doing it, and with what impact on the learners. One thing I soon realized was the increasing distance between law and justice, and what should be the role of a law teacher and the law students in bridging the gap or reducing the gap between law and justice. On reflection, I felt that law teachers have been spending perhaps disproportionate time and energy on exploring areas around markets, around states, around corporates, with leaving little space for people and their livelihoods and social justice. In fact, as a result of this realization, when I got the opportunity to restructure the curriculum and come up with an alternative LLB curriculum in mid-1980s, we introduced or brought together a lot of social science and humanities subjects within the law school curriculum and tried to integrate them with a view to understand law in social context. That led to revolutionary changes in study materials, in teaching methods, or learning methods if you like, and we ourselves changed our perspectives on the role of law in society and the role of a law teacher if they want to serve or maximize justice in society. I believe that there is a lesson to be learned. In fact, I had an occasion in the American Association of Law Schools in 1996, met at Florida. They invited me from the National Law School, Bangalore, to speak on my experience of this alternative curriculum. I spoke with the title, In Defense of Social Relevance of Legal Education. Many teachers got attracted to the idea. We were for quite some time in electronic communication, but the interest grew and they asked me to have a conference arranged in India. We did it in 1999 in Trivandrum, the city where I live in Kerala. About 26 states law teachers were there, many of them from the East European countries. That was the year in 1999, an association of law teachers called GAGE, Global Alliance for Justice Education, was born. Many of the East European law teachers really took a lot of interest on increasing the social relevance of legal education and bridging the gap between law and justice and keeping the focus on the people in legal education. I understand that GAGE is meeting for the 11th or 12th conference in Mexico next month. I think the International Association of Law Schools and the law deans will benefit while strategizing for the 21st century legal education, looking at what GAGE is doing with the same objective, but a slightly different direction. That's my first story, and one more story and I have done. That is about what I learned again, how people look at justice differently, in a different perspectives, under the same rule of law. This was an occasion when I was asked to give a summer course in the University of Washington in St. Louis on the subject of equality and affirmative action, Indian and American experiences. I was co-teaching with a professor of the St. Louis Law School. We had about 20 students from about 15 different countries. I tried to give the experience in India of how to bring about equality in an unequal society through preferential discrimination, through compensatory justice. We don't generally use here affirmative action as such, and even going to the extent of reservation in education and public employment. This was a course lasting for about a month and a half. My American colleague has dealt with